Hello, everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Walls and Ceilings and roofing contractor and building enclosure. Today is May 27th, 2020. Art Eisner, the editor of Roofing Contractor, and I are here today with Renee Sachs, the president and CEO of Sachs Communication. She is also the executive director of the Women Builders Council in New York and also publishes a periodic called Diversity Agenda. We are so thrilled to kick off a series of videos with Renee to provide some incredible ideas for contractors to manage their communications as we navigate through this pandemic. Renee has some great experience and we are so honored to speak with her today. So Renee, what are you seeing and hearing?
Jill, yes. First, let me just thank you and Art for allowing me to be here. I'm so delighted to share some of the ideas that we have and also provide some guidance for contractors as they pivot in the pandemic.
Yes. So, yeah, Renee, can you tell us, what are you seeing and hearing about the construction industry as weathering this unprecedented pandemic?
Well, in New York in particular, and across the country, essential and non-essential service seem to be driving what people are doing in the construction industry, whether they're ready to go back to work or not. Many companies have remained on pause because a lot of the non-essential services, or that which has been deemed non-essential, are not drawing people back to work yet. So what I've also heard is that many companies have not gone out of business, which I think is really important at this point. So we're all sort of struck. We have new conditions. We have increasing costs for social distancing, increasing costs for PPE equipment, logistics, equipment management and safety, supply chain interruptions. They're changing the cost structure in construction today, and they're also, as we will bid for new work. So there's a lot of changes, but people are sort of holding still and they're not falling apart. But there are lots of things that they need to do as they move forward. And I hope that's some of what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, absolutely. You know, many company leaders are working with a playbook that has not been written yet, or being written on the fly. Now, especially, what should contractors consider about their branding, external communications, especially managing and navigating news?
Okay, so I take sort of a broader look at what a company should be doing in terms of a playbook. A lot of company leaders are seeing the glass half full. Now that's bad, and that's also good. But companies who are looking to create a playbook for themselves as they move into the midterm and the far term of 2020 and 2021 need to look at things before they even look at their communications. Communications is key. They need to look at their company. They need to look at their resources, what they're doing, their cash flow projections, their pipeline, what they've really got. They really need to take a strong, hard assessment of themselves. And part of that assessment, which is often ignored, so cash begins with C and so does communications. And communications can be a hidden value for putting cash back into a company. So communications, internal and external, need to be examined. Marketing is part of that process. Budgets are really tight. Nobody wants to spend money, but if you don't spend money at this time, you don't begin to invest in yourself and how that can stimulate work. That's another problem that will emerge down the road. And also managing bad news. So sometimes you can have a crisis on your job site. You can end up with an employee who's ill. You can end up with your employees not returning to work. They don't want to come back to work. It's not safe for them to come back to work. And all of that reflects your brand. So, you know, brand is a funny thing. It's tangible, but it's also intangible. It's what people think about you, how they feel about you, how they look to you, and your reputation is part of your brand. So it's not just the way the company looks, but it's also authentic pieces of the internal leadership that really comprise what this brand is, what your reputation is.
Renee, you talked about the importance of internal and external communication at this time. Is good communication taken for granted? And how important are some of those procedures to have in place already before a crisis hits?
Most companies don't have a plan for communications, particularly in construction. Historically, communications and marketing has been a novel idea. I don't need a communications plan. I just need to talk to the relationships and the network that I have. And that has traditionally and historically been, I don't want to say it, but it's been a gender-based relationship networking system where a lot of women, minorities, haven't really participated as well. And so that's changing. The whole network in New York is changing, and the demand for companies to begin to collaborate and become new teams is really where progress is going to take place. And in particular in New York, and I can speak to New York most realistically, our governor has created goals for MWB, Minority and Women Business Enterprise, and DBE participation, which is on the federal level. That's changing the paradigm of the way communications are occurring between and among companies. But in looking at what a company needs to do, again, a small subcontractor, a general contractor who's working in this area, even architects and engineers haven't really looked at their communications program. If anything, they may have taken it in-house and think it's proposal writing, or that it's getting out a change in logo or getting out a newsletter. It's more than that. It really is the full spectrum of how you communicate with your clients, with your internal workforce, with your project managers, with your advisors, letting them have the same message, a consistent, straightforward, authentic message about your company and what it's doing and what it can do is probably the most simple thing and the most cost-effective thing any company can do at this time.
Are there ways to, to make that happen, to get a simplified message together and get buy-in from everyone involved? I think, especially for some roofing contractors, it's difficult to get crews to think about the importance of branding and the role that they actually have when they're in site actually working on a roof where people can see what they're doing.
And they are the most important brand ambassadors. They are your brand. Your people are your brand. And so before looking externally, you need to clean up and manage your brand inside your own shop. Because if you don't, men who don't get there on time, men who are taking a longer break, men who are dressed in a particular way, and you need them to look like your company, these are simple things that you can do without large marketing budgets before you take more bold steps to really put your name out there. So it's really about cleaning up what you have in terms of the way your brand presents, the way people think of your brand, even asking your clients directly, what do you think of us? How did they do? Many of the larger construction management firms across the country and globally are looking at customer satisfaction surveys and even have a customer satisfaction officer who looks at the relationship and the way my company interfaced with your company. Were you happy? Did you like it? And that in particular today, in the middle of this crisis, when you don't know if you're going to have enough work to stay in business or not, should be part of your strategy for shifting, and I'm calling it pivot because I think the pivot is amazing. For those of you in the audience who play golf, and I don't, but I'm a student of it, that pivot play will increase your distance, it'll increase your strength, it'll increase a lot of things. So what is the pivot and how do you do it? But the first step, Art, I really believe, is the internal cleanup and management of your communication system in-house and how your team looks at you. So there's something else that's going on. We have been hit front face with the pandemic. Some of us have not come out of our homes in the last couple of months. Some of us have. Many of us are dealing virtually with our employees. You need to move to some new tools, not to have new technologies at your fingertips in order to communicate with your team, put you behind the bench. You're not out there. And so what we're finding, day one of my own company, we went virtual. And as a matter of fact, my team, who's comprised of younger people than me, put it together. They got everybody to take their monitors home, their phones home. They are Zoom sophisticated. There are a number of different platforms. You can use Microsoft Teams. There are a number of different types of virtual systems. But we got on our Google Hangout day one before the governor of New York shut down the state. And we were ready to go. So then our challenge became, who are we going to talk to beside ourselves? We needed to talk to our clients. None of our clients were Zoom savvy. None of our clients really knew what we were talking about. None of our clients trusted it. And so we came up with procedures and practices that they can use. And I can tell you, all the major associations in New York that we work with are now Zoom friendly. We're doing Zoom general membership meetings. They're doing Zoom board meetings. Later today, we have a Zoom conference for a university that has over 500 attendees. So we're really taking technology now, integrating it into the way we work. So we never stop communicating.
That's certainly a clear example of a pivot that worked. Let's talk about the ability to pivot a little more. How would you describe doing it well, and maybe more importantly, how can you blow it?
Well, one, you don't know how to do it right away. And I think you can see that what we're doing as a company is we're examining production techniques, better ways to present ourselves, and we're looking at lighting, and we're looking at all the things, just using a Zoom technology or a Microsoft team. But if you don't have the resources to go digital, to actually begin to virtually communicate with your clients, like what better way than to send a Zoom invitation or a virtual invitation to a client and actually connect with them online. So you're not connecting with them on a conference call, which is a little boring because you can't judge reaction. I can't see if you're smiling. I can't see if you're not smiling, if I'm not saying the right things. Now we have face-to-face communication. To be honest, very simple thing, ask your grandchildren or your children to help you if you don't have a digital director. Go simple and go cheap. They know how to do this. They'll show you. They're all learning from home now. And they know how to do Google Hangout. They know how to set you up. And you can't imagine the level of engagement and interest and connection you're going to begin to have with your own family when you actually get them Zoom friendly and on a platform that will allow you to connect. So I encourage companies to really look at that. If they're not already virtual, many of them are, but in the roofing, in the walls and ceiling, and in many of the traditional historical construction trades, technology has not been the driver. And today, the new technology is going to be a way of managing your risk, which is really another conversation as you pivot. How do you manage your risk? So I think just the going virtual, but if you don't have a budget to hire somebody, and you can, college interns are available. Buy them, get them, and have them help you create that communications platform so you look professional and you look like you're ready to go.
Does it worry you at all, the influx of technology and now really the crutch that a lot of contractors will have to use it for in order to keep operating? Is there something? Does that worry you at all about the acceleration of technology now that it's here?
Yeah, we've found one of the things in my company, so Saks Communications is a corporate communications firm. A lot of our work was events and event production. I mean, we did business development, we did strategic marketing, we do newsletters and websites and all of the historical tools that you have. But our events were shut down. Can't do an in-person event. You can't have an event for more than 10 people or 50 people, depending on what state you're in. Nobody wants to go to an event because it puts them at risk. So we've invested and created now a virtual solution, which is not, you think it's great. So I've made an actual financial investment, which is a risk because they didn't sell it yet. I have it. We learned how to use it. We're using it. We're building it. We're working with a developer to do that. But in doing that, now I have the client side. Oh, we may not want to go virtual. Maybe we'll just do a smaller event with 50 people, but we don't have the revenue. You don't have the resources, and it's not going to work, and it's going to affect a brand of an event. So we're taking it a step further. And there's a job of selling a new technology to a client, so that they can understand that this is a new way of doing business, a new way of presenting integration of ideas and new trends. And it's really exciting. I shouldn't say this, I think it's more exciting than doing an in-person event. And I can tell you, I know I don't look shy, but I'm a very shy person. And I hated going to all my events. Some of them had 2,000 or 3,000 people there. And I was happier just on the drive up to where we had to go. But when I got there, it's fine. It's nerve-wracking. It's actually less tension generating to do a virtual event because I don't have to show it live. I can show it live. I can show it semi-live. I can make it on demand. I can edit it if I did some bloop. I can fix things. And while it's a little bit more work, it's different work. And it's also about planning. You just don't go into a program. So for a contractor who says, okay, I'm going to do my Monday morning production meeting, and I don't know if they do one every day, but my tool talk, my job safety program, that can all be done in a streamlined manner through using virtual technology, and it's on demand. You don't have to do it again. It's the tool talk that told you how to use certain membranes for your roof. I used to study roofing, Art, I want you to know. Had a lot of experience in the subcontract. I've been in boilers, but dressed differently, but in boilers. So just knowing what you need to know. And it's a communications tool for your clients because they can see how state-of-the-art you are, how well prepared you are, and how you're preparing your workforce to go on their job.
So with all those different and new opportunities, there's a lot of potential for growth through this crisis, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, as I explained, I have now shifted direction for my own company. Shifting direction, making a pivot is really easy. You just turn and you go, but it isn't. It isn't that way. You really need to have a plan. You need to sort of understand the several different aspects of what a pivot is. And, pivot is not a new term. It's a term that's been used, but pivoting in this pandemic really makes you do it. So we've all had personal experiences or professional experience. Company did well, the company didn't do well, somebody attacked the company, your competition took your biggest client. I mean, I've watched large global 40,000 person companies where the chairman went out on a strategy, he pivoted, it didn't work. So things happen, but how do you begin to sort of set your sight on making a change? The first thing you need to do is to evaluate your company. Really take a hard look at your company. It's financial resources, it's people resources. If you're going to downsize, which you can and can't do now. You can try to downsize, but if you've been the benefit of stimulus funds, you have to resize. And that's also difficult for construction companies that are on pause. It's a whole different topic. How do you hire back when you don't have the work? And some of the stimulus requirements are requiring that. But you need to look at where you are honestly. And then you need to look at where your team is going in terms of what resources you have. And you even need to tap into your advisors. So you paid the accountants, you paid the lawyers, you paid if you had communications companies working for you, you didn't pay your mentors, but you might have a mentor, or you might even look to a larger company to say, could you come in on a conversation with me? I'm looking to redirect. Look at what you've done. You've now engaged a potential client in understanding that you are ready to shift or pivot to a new way of doing business, perhaps in a new market. I mean, obviously there are some essential markets that are going to grow, healthcare, transportation, education. They're going to grow in different ways. And there's some markets like retail real estate that are going to have a difficult time coming back. People are getting used to working offsite. So in terms of a pivot plan, I think the first thing is be authentic with yourself, be real. The second is create that plan and plan with a purpose. So put on blinders, very difficult to do. I'm a bad case of focused planner, but the focus is important. And then also assess your resources.
Okay, and specific to branding and marketing, we've heard from some contractors that are actually doubling down now. They recognize that there might be a soft spot in the market or that their competitors aren't going to be advertising. So they're pushing forward. Does that sound strategy?
Well, let's look at roofing contractors for a moment. If you're a roofing contractor, you put on roofs. If you're looking at new opportunities in new markets, and you also examine some of the trends that are going on in new markets in terms of solar, in terms of energy conservation, in terms of roofing membranes that may be, and I may be speaking out of line here because I'm not a roofing expert, but I do know that new technologies and new ways of using materials are going to be, are really going to be high priority. I mean, even in construction, modular construction is going to grow because we're looking at building differently. Delivery methods are changing. I think what contractors need to do is to look at the industry too. They need to do a little bit of research. So when you know, sort of historical subcontractors, they knew their industry, they knew their trade, they knew their craft. Now you have to look at some things that are changing, and you need to tap you need to tap into those changes. How do you get that information? What do you look like? What do you look at rather? And how can you begin to sort of press the button on becoming a lifelong learner? So I have the greatest respect for subcontractors who really know their craft and trade. They are some of the brightest people that I've ever met. Many of them are men. Some more are women now. They really understand the market. They know how to run their business. And instead of being a roofing contractor or an electrical contractor, looking at becoming a solutions provider may be the shift that they need to think about. What are the materials? How do I evaluate them? What do I recommend to my clients? Maybe I just provide evaluation if you're not putting up a new roof. Maybe you need to think about it as you think about the next iteration of where the market is going to go. So I think it's about being creative and about looking outside of the box as you create this, what I'm calling a pivot. Yes? Did I not answer your question? I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you for
Sure.
some details on workforce.
Yeah, let's talk about workforce. So Renee, you know, now is also a time for workers to evaluate company leaders as they navigate the crisis. What is the criteria for effective leadership, and how can company officials demonstrate that?
Yeah. So company owners are a strange breed of people. Experienced ones know that they keep most of their secrets and strategy to their own heart. They may stay under the radar screen. They may not be that outgoing. They may not want to talk to their employees. People have had lots of experiences where employees, some you trust, some you don't trust, some have gone off with your business. All sorts of things happen. So a savvy business owner understands that, but they also understand how to control the message. And so I think for me, and I tend to be, maybe it's because I'm a woman. I don't mean to be sexist in any way, but I tend to be more open. I'll ask questions that a man won't ask. I'll say things that a man won't say. And that tends to be some of a maternal nature. I don't know if it is sexist or not. It's the way I communicate. And so I think it's about, and authenticity has been, you know, it's been the standard, be authentic. Well, what does that mean? It means to be yourself, to share prudently. I have a senior vice president in my company who always says, Renee, don't say that. Don't say that because you could be sued. You could be, you shouldn't say that. That's not your concern. I find an employee is not feeling well. I'll say, well, how are you feeling? You shouldn't say that. They'll let you know if they're not feeling well. They'll let you know what they want. There's so much to running a company today and to trying to be an authentic leader. So it's about developing those trusting relationships that you can with your people one by one. I didn't always know this. I've been in business now 35 years, long time. I didn't always know what I was doing. And I don't think people do know what they're doing all the time. You're not born with a playbook for being a business owner. Younger people who have gone to business school have looked at it differently. But some of our other contractors today haven't had that experience, or they're tapping into their children. This is a good time, by the way, to tap into the next generation because they don't have jobs. And they may have graduated from college and they may be home. They may be with you. Virtually communicating. And if you tap into them, they're a great resource for helping you actually begin to organize your firm and communicate with your firm. I also recommend looking out of the box. And here, if you're a contractor, one of the things that we've been doing, we work with the Subcontractor Trade Association in New York. And one of the things we've done over the last 2 years is encourage the subcontractors trade to open their doors to architects and engineers. And so they've actually changed their bylaws and have begun to encourage architects and engineers to talk to them. Why is this important? Well, when subcontractors don't like the drawings that an architect or engineer does, they sue them. Or they say, that's the reason I need a change order. Or there's always this little bit of litigious conflict going on. Or our subcontractors may not be using the latest BIM modeling technology. And so there might be a disconnect or some dissonance. So in the Subcontractor Trade Association, a very progressive organization, they're now bringing architects and engineers to the table to begin conversations to talk about it. What better way than to go to the architect or engineer that may have done your drawings for a prior project, hopefully they were good and everything worked out fine, and say, you know, I need to do social distancing now. I need to get my men up into the, from the elevator, you know, through the elevator shaft, and they now need to be slower, production is reduced. How do I do that? Do you have some suggestions? Architects, the design professionals, they think about how to work more efficiently. They think about their drawings and how they're going to be executed. I think that sharing can also change the paradigm on your pivot, contribute to it, but also open the door to creating really good, positive business relationships. So you don't end the conversation with just thank you, but you know, someone called me on a health facility. We're going to be putting a new roof on. We're going to do wall and ceilings. We're going to be using new finishings, or the electrical contractors have a new lighting solution that can be actually kill germs. So it's a different kind of bulb. How do we integrate that? What do we do? How do we go back to the owner? How do we create more of a team? So I think it's the authenticity, the planning, the focus, and the last thing is continual assessment. Reassess, is it working? Because what you're doing when you change is you're managing risk. So you're managing risk when you do a job, and you're managing risk when you're creating a change. And that is the challenge of every business owner that I know.
Yes, lots of challenges, that's for sure. And as owners, you know, how can they approach communicating the delicate balance of maintaining health and safety while also staying economically viable?
Have a Zoom safety meeting. I'm not promoting Zoom or any other virtual program, but whether it's Microsoft Teams or whatever you're going to use, let your employees know that they need to be honest and forthright with you. A temperature is just one measure of a COVID symptom. It's the important one. And, you know, temperature is a funny thing. As we get into the summer months, those temperatures are going to rise. And how we're going to organize them, how we're going to look at them, I think be very frank and open with your employees. This is a time when, as a team, as a company, we need to work together. We need to be honest with each other. You can call me anytime. Let me know if you have a problem. I want to know. And I think it may break down some of the walls that we've had in the past. I mean, I'm approaching assignments now, and I work a lot with government, and I'm actually thinking of a plan to begin to break down some of the pipelines and channels of communication that I normally had to adhere to. It's a risk because I'm supposed to go, you know, one step at a time. But unless we work as a team to execute our projects with the owner, we're not going to succeed in this very, very challenging time. So just on the last note, everybody's talking about, you know, who's going to pay for the cost of the increased social distancing, the PPE materials, the shift changes, the shift increases, the sanitization, the whole 9 yards, and even the workers' comp issue and safety instruction, which has to increase. Who's going to pay for this? I think we need to come together as an industry, owners, subcontractors, general contractors, and CMs, and talk about it. This is notwithstanding attorneys. I don't think we don't want it to end up being a profit center for attorneys. We need to figure out some solutions that will work now and will also work as we bid new work, because we need to consider those costs bidding as we bid new work. So those are some of my suggestions for what seemed like a simple pivot, just a simple move to the right or the left.
Well, one final question, Renee. I mean,
Yes.
We all know relationships are so important, and you're so involved with the Women Builders Council. What would you say, whether it's men or women, or just, and we all know networking, and again, those relationships are so important, but what do you think specifically for Women Builders Council has been so helpful for you and other contractors out there, and why should they get involved?
Women Builders Council is an interesting group. It was formed 16 years ago with 6 women who said, we don't have any opportunity. Goals in New York City were 0%. Well, you don't need to do much to achieve 0, which means they had no opportunity. Nobody was calling them. There was no work, and not in the public sector. In the private sector, again, you were countering a male-dominated relationship, network-driven, situation. Women didn't play golf. I didn't mean to mention golf, but WBC has an annual golf outing. I'm not sure if we're doing it this year, but if we do, it has been a really great success because we've begun to incorporate some of the strategies. So WBC prevents a platform where women can come and meet other women, do business with other women, as well as doing business with the men who are, at this time, we're working on this, the top leaders. So for every woman on our board who is not a women-owned business, we have women-owned business, minority women-owned businesses, as well as corporate leaders. So our organization represents almost all of the major CMs and GCs in the New York area, which also makes it sort of national because it's companies like Turner and Gilbane and Lundley's. Those board members represent those companies. All of those women, I will say, over the several years that I've been involved now, well, not quite 16 years, but more over a decade, are now moving up. They've all been promoted. They've opened the door for women to get involved in the industry. So the 9% number of women in the construction industry is growing. We're not growing at leaps and bounds, but the engineering school is graduating more women. We have a student chapter at Case Western University out in Ohio, which is challenging for us because we're in New York. We've started that. We're looking at student chapters. We're looking at getting next generation women involved, young women. It's not easy. The doors are not wide open in construction companies because there's also been such a dearth of talent. If you have an employer, you don't want to lose them. But now we have a different situation. It's an employer's market, not an employee's market. So employees need to retool also. So WBC is doing some initiatives in terms of creating educational programs where younger generation employees can begin to look at either creating new directions, creating new pathways, creating new relationships. We have a next generation program, and we have something called Met and Bod. And so we actually have events for younger people because our board, I'm the oldest, but the board is an older group. They're in their 40s and 50s and upwards. So we're looking at how we're creating that pipeline. WBC has been an amazing experience. And that is where I have all my friends, by the way. I don't have time for other friends. So I have my family and I have the WBC board members whom I know very well and I know they can count on me. So for me, it's been, I've been both mentored because I've learned how to manage board relationships. I didn't know how to do that when I started. I wasn't grown to be an executive director, and also how I can help them in their career choices, their next steps. So it's been very, very rewarding, and it's about networking, and it's all about communications.
Well, I know how much you do for them because that's how I was introduced to you, Renee, and it truly is an honor to have you with us today. We look forward to speaking with you again as we continue this wonderful pivot series with you. And again, thank you to everybody watching today. If you need to contact any of us, please go to either wconline.com or roofingcontractor.com and click contact us, subscribe to our digital editions, our e-newsletters, follow us on all our social media channels. But everyone, please stay safe and healthy. And thank you so much for watching today. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you for having me.